Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
A lot of election conversation between 3 and 4 on the program. We're going to get heavily back into it with Kessler after the Top 5 at 5. We were out at 6 o'clock today for reasons that, I don't know, maybe a part of this Top 5 at 5.
Yes, Vikings X's and O's tonight at 6 o'clock, and then the lid lifter on the 2024-25 Gopher men's basketball season, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip against Oral Roberts.
Roberts, the opponent.
Yes, out of the Summit League, I believe.
Okay.
I think they're still in the Summit League.
This is our opener?
It is.
We've had a couple exhibitions, haven't we? But
we have. This is the first real game.
Official ball game. Your club had its first official game. The women's team, was it two
Monday.
nights ago?
Yeah.
And it looks like you toyed with
Central Connecticut
was it Oral
State,
Roberts?
The Blue Devils. No,
okay.
It was not a home-and-home with Oral Roberts.
All right, very good.
So that's why we're out a little bit early. Vikings program about an hour from now. Vikings news now. Garrett Bradbury and Andrew Van Ginkel, Gink, get the Veterans Day off today. They did not have to practice. It would be good. A little load management. You get that tomorrow when we're out at 5:40 for Vikings programming in wild hockey.
5:40 tomorrow. That's nice.
Russo's going to join tomorrow, too. So a little bit of a Veterans Day off tomorrow. Out at 6 tonight. But Van Ginkel and Bradbury did not participate in practice. Josh Oliver was full. Caleb Evans was limited. Ivan Pace did not participate with the knee injury. And Blake Cashman was limited in practice today with that turf toe. Kevin O'Connell telling reporters, we hope it's this week. It could be this week that he returns when the Vikings take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville on Sunday. But he's at least back out there on the field.
I guess this is we need to make a clarification regarding our new kicker. Did you see this nugget?
I was going to get to it. Go ahead.
Well, apparently, he's identified as John Parker Romo, right, on NFL rosters. But he revealed to the Jackals today, the media Jackals, that he actually goes by Parker. So do we start now calling him Parker Romo?
If that's what he says he goes by, I think we have to call him Parker Romo. So is Parker his middle name?
Or is John Parker his first name and he just prefers the second half of it? I'm all confused. Then I would go, what can we call him JP?
I bet people do. I bet some people
Romo.
do. Yeah.
All that matters is he makes a kick if the Vikings need it to avoid embarrassment against Jacksonville, who might not have their starting quarterback.
I was going to get to that, too.
Good.
Because he was limited in practice today with the left shoulder injury.
You know what? You know how you want it? I'll tell you, he fixes his shoulders. He gets a haircut. Hair's too long. It's a burden on his shoulders.
You think so?
It's heavy.
Doesn't bother Van Ginkel.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
Gink can handle it.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence can't.
The backup QB for Jacksonville, I had the name earlier today, and now the name's escaping me. I want to say he's the ex-Patriots quarterback, is he not?
It is Mac Jones.
Mac Jones, yeah.
Yes. They also just brought in C.J. Beathard, I think.
Oh, my.
Old Iowa quarterback.
I'm close to calling this game loser-proof.
You're close to calling it?
Is that bad? Is that dangerous?
Is it too early to call it? Too close to call?
Pretty close. By Thursday or Friday, I think I'm going to go loser-proof. Because, and the weird thing about who's the starter? Generally?
Trevor Lawrence.
He's been very up and down through his career,
yes.
Right? Yep. He's had a couple actually statistically good games this year, but they always feels like there's something missing. But is it that their organization is dysfunctional? Is that what's holding him back, or is he holding them back? I don't know, but fair to say he has been nowhere near
underwhelming
the quarterback that people predicted he was going to be.
He was talked about in college as, go down the list, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. The next great one. Now, a lot of these guys have been recently. Bryce Young was talked about like that, right?
Correct.
Caleb Williams has kind of been talked about like that, but Lawrence was certainly in that category. There's guys like him that if he came out this year, he'd be the number one pick, and then he has to stay in college a year because of the rules. And he was one of those guys for sure. And he did put together a nice drive against the Packers. He scored too fast. He gave them, I think they either tied it or he gave him a lead late against Green Bay. And
they had a chance to come back and get the field goal.
They left too much time for Malik Willis, who went right back down the field and got the field goal. Vikings only 4.5-point favorites.
What?
Well, 4-point favorites. We'll go 4.5 Friday for the pick segment.
That seems a little disrespectful. But then again, it's there, right? Yep. And I don't think very many people have us. If you do the tier game, tiers of teams, a couple of reports I saw had us on tier 3, not even tier 2.
Yeah.
Like tier 3, which I think is probably where we belong
that's
right
fair.
now.
Yeah. And which the opponent, too, same thing.
Yeah.
Last night in St. Paul, Minnesota Wild took as the kids say,
happened?
fat L. Kevin Fiala.
Is it all
happened.
coming apart?
Well, we'll see. Let's see if one turns into two. But it was a decisive loss last night. The Kings of Los Angeles scored 5 straight goals to knock off the Wild 5-1. Wild power play was not good. LA went 4 for 4 on the penalty kill. Kings are putting together a nice season as well. They're 8-3-3.
Didn't they get a couple of... I don't think our penalty kill was effective either, was it? Did we give up a couple of shorthanded goals?
I don't know if we gave up any power play.
Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember.
It's very possible. I don't have those
I was
specifics.
on election duty last night, so I didn't get to watch a lot of it. But I did notice the score. And we're going to have Russo later this week, right?
Tomorrow.
The Russo tone, though, was like, it's over, Johnny. Did you notice that? Now, maybe he was affected by the election results. I don't know. But it was like, well, wait a minute. It sounds like a clunker. Sounds like nothing was working particularly well. But, we weren't going to play flawless hockey the rest of the way, were we? Realistically?
Not really. I liked what Louis said yesterday. It's really difficult. It's funny. We're 10 minutes into the season, and it's very difficult for the Wild
He
to
basically
miss
said
the
we can't miss the playoffs.
That's amazing.
I know.
It's November 6th. By the way, here's one way they could miss the playoffs if Kaprizov keeps getting hit in the mouth. He was struck in the mouth by an errant puck last night and left in the second period. Did come back, dropped to his knees, was bleeding, missed the final 12 minutes of the second period, but did come back for the third. He did get some stitches. So one of the leading scorers in the NHL, one of the best players so far in the NHL, Kirill Kaprizov, should be good to go. So no harm, no foul. I mentioned it. We're out early again tomorrow night. Not for Wolves, but the Wild take on the San Jose Sharks tomorrow night at 9:30.
Interesting.
So there you go. Fan of 2 Men in a Junk Truck. Want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand. It is our national cash contest. You can enter the keyword check at KFAN.com. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword check.
I notice on the CNN screen, Vice President Harris approaching the podium. She gave this her sort of concession speech earlier. Is that correct? While we were on?
Yes.
I did. Do we know how long it went? I'm sure Kessler will be able to answer those questions.
Nope.
Curious to know what the tone was. I'm looking at video of her coming out, smiling, clapping, trying to take the high road in that regard. And I don't think she's accusing the other side of stealing the election, but no. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
She did not do that.
She did not go down that road?
It didn't appear. I think I didn't see any tweets indicating that, so I think she did take the high road.
Kessler on everything political, and I want to get not just into national stuff, but state stuff as well. Who's going to be in charge of stuff, and how quickly does the governor come back and just get right back in the saddle, right?
Because it's kind of weird. He's back.
Coach is back. It's over for him, right?
Are we going to have to call him coach, or are we putting that to bed?
Yeah, well, we probably should because it was more of a national phenomenon than it was a local one. Kessie is next.
Fan.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Pat Kessler.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler. And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own Pat Kessler Political Wonk.
I feel like a supermodel, except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's Pat Kessler with Dan Barrero on the Fan.
He takes pride in his length, I mean, it was...
I don't know what that's for, but I thought I'd play it. Kessler is indeed...
He can't find his phone.
He was in the house. It's awful small. Did you find it? Yeah, he found it. Kessler found his... He's a little discombobulated today. He joins, and we're out at 6. So we got a short segment that will be followed by a lengthier one, but we'll go towards the top of the hour Help me. There's a million ways to start, but let's do it this way. I did not get to see the concession speech from Vice President Harris. That was earlier this afternoon, I believe. You tell me it clocked in at about 12 minutes.
Yeah, 12 minutes.
So, that sounds long for that kind of speech. So what did she say? How would you describe?
Might be the last one she ever gives. So
that's
true. Wow! Right out of the gate.
That's how it works.
You don't
in
think
politics.
she's running for president again? Like declaring right away?
We've counted people out before.
I know. Donald Trump.
There you go. Exactly.
There it is. So it was about 12 minutes long. It was low key. A lot of it sounded campaign speech like.
Okay.
However, there were a couple of lines there, and your guy Walsey was there.
He was there.
Yeah, you know how he does his praying hello, like namaste, namaste. Yeah, he was there doing that deal, and they got to be devastated. I mean, you work 24/7 for months. And this is how it ends up. But, she gave, a campaign style, tried to inspire young girls, and tell the Democrats that all is not lost, although it is. And, but she said something that I thought was interesting. She said, and it's true, she called President Trump, earlier today, offered her congratulations. Both sides describe it as a cordial conversation. She said in the speech that she told him that she would cooperate with him so that there would be a peaceful transition of power. So she threw in the word peaceful, going back to January 6th, 4 years ago. So it was kind of an uplifting speech for her, for the Democrats, who are devastated. And for those of us who watched last night at Howard University, when thousands and thousands of people showed up, and then when the dude comes out and says, well, she's not going to speak tonight. Oh, my God. And they were just kind of, you could see the lines going.
Well, the other thing that happened, as I recall it, is they basically, when they were having CNN coverage on the screen, on the big screens, and somebody on CNN basically said, this is not looking good. And then they said, cut to music. We're going to go music the rest of the way. That was another sign that there were a lot of uncomfortable silences.
Yeah, there really were.
On that location.
And they would initially boo when Trump results were boo.
Yeah.
But she did say, and this is a quote that you'll probably hear a lot. She says, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. So, it's an artfully written speech. And that is what we do in this country. President Biden also called Donald Trump and offered his assistance for whatever he needed for the transition. And
invited him in, correct?
Invited him to the White House.
Which has happened when Trump won the last time. He got invited by Obama. Didn't he? Yeah. I thought
he got invited by Obama.
Yeah,
and it's got to be a little prickly. I mean, these guys are doing this.
Yes, yeah.
Obama invited him despite the campaign where he's a Muslim, he's not really born in the country, and all of that stuff. And that's what the country expects. And so Biden is going to do this. I'll be very curious who shows up at the inauguration.
Do you think there's a side of Biden today that perversely is chuckling and saying, okay, you guys, let's be honest, you forced me out.
I do.
So you got what you wanted, and guess what? Look at the numbers. The numbers end up being worse in many ways than anyone could have possibly anticipated, even those people who were predicting that indeed Trump would win.
I did not think you were going to say have a perverse enjoyment of it, but I think there might be a tiny bit of that. Yes. I really do. He did not want to be pushed out of the race. He was unceremoniously put in the ejector seat and shot out of a cannon. Boom. And he's out of the race. I do think he probably, just from reporting that I hear, is a little bit bitter still about all of this. Still has not spoken to Nancy Pelosi. He's bitter with Barack Obama for his role in this. And
not to mention George Clooney.
Oh, and you know,
he was big on it. Yeah, remember?
Dude, we were buddies. Our stuff was good. And now you turned on me. So I do think he would not. It's human to have these kinds of emotions.
Well, yes.
And when you look at the results, as you mentioned, we look at the county by county results, and in almost every county, she did not perform as well as Joe Biden did. So is it plausible, as the finger pointing has begun and the backstabbing has commenced, is it plausible that Joe Biden, for whatever reason, if he had stayed in the race, would he have done better than her? Really hard to know.
It's hard to know. My gut tells me not much more, because I think he's a different guy now than he was when I felt like he was the guy to beat Trump the first time. I just don't think he's the same guy.
You're right.
We're never going to know, though.
You're absolutely right. And every public appearance we've seen of him since he dropped out of the race, he has he looks a lot more frail. A lot more, I'm not going to say out of it, because he's president of the United States and he has duties and he appears to be performing those duties. But he does not seem to be that guy.
As uncomfortable as it is in this state, how much of this can we pin on Plaid Dad?
Your guy, Plaid Dad. I thought we'd all be wearing plaid for the next 4 years. I got a closet full of them now. Remember what Obama said about that? He doesn't put it on as a costume. He's got a closet full, or whatever it was.
It sounded good at the time.
Yeah, it was so good. That's more finger pointing. Why did she pick Gaardsy when the idea was that he was going to help shore up the rural vote? And he spent a lot of time in rural communities, fixing people's carburetors and changing their tires and discussing gutter maintenance with them, to kind of be that guy, the Midwest dad guy.
Lug nut guy.
And so, in fact, Donald Trump improved on the rural vote that he had 4 years ago. So that didn't seem to work. So there is some finger pointing on that deal, too, because early on, we recall, there was some talk of why didn't she pick Josh Shapiro, and it had the Palestinian-Israeli conflict stuff involved with that. And if she had Shapiro, would she have won Pennsylvania? She had to win Pennsylvania. And, I mean, they were going down like dominoes. It took a while, but that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, given it ends up being as thorough a victory as it is, or appears to be, I think it's actually easier to say it's no one thing, that it's
Absolutely.
not just that, although you could say, well, several things could end up contributing to it as well. So, you have on your list here, you gave me a nice long list, as always, for the show, and you hearkened back to the Madison Square Garden rally and the Puerto Rico garbage joke, and the assumption was, well, this is one of those late, because it's happening so late, it might actually linger as being a problem and an issue, especially among Latino men. But the numbers would indicate that other things took precedence over whatever, frustration or hatred they might have had over the hateful comments that were offered up by some comic guy I never heard of until that occasion. So how do we explain this? How are the wonks explaining those disconnects?
We were seeing exit poll results last night showing that instead of, as many of the lamestream media pundits were saying, that they're going to lose support among Latino men and Puerto Ricans in particular in Pennsylvania. Well, in fact,
where there's a decent population,
450,000, the Puerto Rican.
It's like third or fourth
community.
in the country.
Absolutely. You've got Florida, New York, and Pennsylvania. That's where it is. But in fact, Puerto Rican men and Latino men, their support for Donald Trump rose. He was able to grow support among many of the men of color. Now, she won a majority of it.
Yes.
But, however, of black men, for example. However, he was able to claw back a lot of that. And he did win support, and she didn't, from Latino men, from young men, and from young white men. Those are three pillars that he used that he was going after those, and some of the stuff that many people felt was off-color jokes, or like, why is he talking that way? Why is he going on the podcast of the dude? And that's why.
Right.
That's why he was appealing to them. And so now can we say that he's brilliant, that he is unbelievable, that Donald Trump is a genius for knowing this stuff? It's almost innate. What the heck?
So we're going to get to some of the top issues according to the exit polls. The number that stands out to me was abortion was 13% on the top issues, which would put it 1, 2, 3, slightly ahead of immigration at 12. And again, it's a tough game you play on that because different people can come to different conclusions on it. But that's the point of the poll. That's the average. Why there was so much, again, said and written by the wonks about abortion rights and the belief that women especially were going to be galvanized perhaps like never before. I don't know if that bore out. Why was abortion not a more significant marker, a determinant, as it turns out, on this election?
To quote the great philosopher James Carville, it's the economy, stupid. That's what he said with Bill Clinton, and that is always what features in and figures into the votes of most Americans. Something about this in particular, though, that kind of stuck in the craw of a lot of voters, according to the exit polls, is that we're not doing that well, is what the voters were saying. And the Democratic message, the Democrats were saying, the economy's fine. Things are great. It's getting so much better. Inflation is down. Don't you get it? Look at the price of gas. It's come down so much. And your groceries aren't costing as much as they were a year ago. People did not feel that, according to the polling that we were looking at last night. So the economy, once again, became the number one issue for people. And they didn't appreciate that someone was telling them,
it's better than you think.
Yeah, it's much better. Don't believe your eyes or your pocketbook. Just believe what we're telling you.
Well, and I saw, and some of you can get lost in the numbers. I'll tell you what, let's break. I want to follow it up with something that I saw on CNN last night regarding this part of the story about the economy. Kessler with us to the top of the hour. I will definitely get to some stuff within the state. I'm very curious to know whether we know for a fact that the Minnesota Democratic trifecta is indeed in jeopardy. Where's all that stand? And does the governor literally just walk right back in? Like, hey, I'm back. I'm back in the governor's office. We'll get to all that and more with more Kessler when we return.
Final segment of the show, which is right now tonight, including Pat Kessler, is brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
Kessler is indeed back with us till the top of the hour, and then we're out for some Vikings programming. And then Golden Gopher men's basketball makes its season debut hosting Oral Roberts. What's the Oral Roberts nickname? I should know. Do you?
I feel like it's the Crusaders or something. It's a religious school.
Yeah, it is.
Of course it is. The Crusaders.
Yeah. That makes some sense.
You just made that up, didn't you?
Well, I think you just kind of
it's the Golden Eagles.
Close enough. It's pretty similar. Crusaders, Golden Eagles.
Oral Roberts, you know who he was?
Well, yeah.
The great evangelist?
Evangelist, yeah. Yeah, we knew that.
Okay.
We weren't born yesterday. I mean, we're old.
Crusaders wasn't that far off, though.
No, then... Was it ever Crusaders?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it sounded good, though. All right, look. So Governor Walz will be back. He's got 2 more years on his term, by the way, for the record.
That is correct.
2 more years on his term. Give us... So, the DFLers have had a nice stranglehold on power lately when it comes to the governor's chair and the House and Senate as well. Where does that stand now on the basis of last night's results that might still be coming in, I'm assuming, in some places?
Yeah, let's talk about Minnesota because Kamala Harris at one point was projected to be 8-9 points ahead. She was going to beat Trump. And it ended up, it was solid win for her, 4.4. So it was closer than people thought. He did better as we've mentioned, in almost every county than he did 4 years ago. So that does affect the elections and the voting for the Minnesota House and the Minnesota Senate. There was one election in the Senate, and the Democrats won that.
So they're holding the Senate by one vote. Okay.
But the House is tied 67 to 67.
Donnybrook.
Pending a couple of recounts. One guy won by 13 and the other one by 28. So
I saw that. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so where is this going to go? And I am old enough to have actually been a reporter my rookie year when the last time the legislature was 67 to 67. And speaking of bloodbath, that's what it was.
Okay, yeah, so what if it stays tied, what happens? How does that work?
They're going to have to negotiate, if it stays tied, who is going to lead the chamber. Is it going to be a Democratic Speaker of the House?
Coin flip?
Or a Republican Speaker of the House? That would be awesome if it was just a coin flip, but it gets into these really extravagant negotiations about who will head the Taxes Committee, who will head the Ways and Means Committee, who's going to get to dole out the money, all of that. And if it gets down to that and they can't decide, what they did 30, 40 years ago was they had the Secretary of State act as Speaker of the House until they could fight it out in behind closed doors. So that could happen. So that's where we are. Governor Walz comes back to Minnesota. He is the governor for 2 years. Democrats control the Senate, but the trifecta may in fact end. And that is to the relief of many Republicans who were claiming and complaining, and validly, that the Democrats didn't include them in anything. They just passed whatever the hell they wanted. And so that it's tied in the House. And so that's going to be a week or so before we know that.
So when's the last time we've been in this position?
I'm going to say in 1980.
And were you covering it then? No.
I was. Yeah.
You were? All right. So
I'm old, man.
You are old. That's true. But it fascinates me because it's like, well, are there rules that determine how the negotiations go, or how, I'm trying to figure out how you end up getting a resolution.
Well, in that case, what they did was the most powerful committees. You have money,
right,
and that's where the power of the purse. You have money in these committees, and so if you have a Democratic speaker, then you've got a Republican controlling the money committee.
I see,
and you can have one more vote than the Democrats. So that is how they did it way back then. Who knows what kind of fight they would have this time around?
Yeah, that'll definitely be worth following. Didn't appear as if Kloby had much difficulty defeating your guy Royce White.
Royce White was an interesting candidate. Let's just say that. He was melting down on social media last night as he briefly was ahead in the count when the first votes came in, and he was saying, "See, I told you. The
where are all my doubters now?"
Yeah, where?
But it was a bit premature.
Yeah, who's your Messiah now? So yeah, but Klobuchar, who has had an incredible run as the Minnesota's Democratic U.S. senator, I don't think her lowest vote total, I think, was 58%. Since it's been 16 years, and she is Minnesota's top vote getter. But there's something important to point out here. The Republicans need to figure out how to nominate candidates that are more in the mainstream. Nothing wrong with Royce White. That's what the party wanted. They wanted a hard
But do you want to give yourself a chance to win?
Yeah, do you want to win? He's a hard MAGA guy who takes advice from Steve Bannon and Alex Jones. He's not going to appeal to mainstream. So they have to figure it out. Maybe don't endorse, maybe go right to a primary.
Is it fair to say, because everybody's trying to figure out, okay, where does the Democratic Party nationally go from here? Because I've read a couple of commentaries suggesting that there really isn't now, that this is really the end of the Obama leadership period. There is nobody at this point, that this is the transition period. So if you agree with that premise, do you think Klobuchar will ever flirt again with running for president? Do you think that ship has sailed where she says, I don't want to put myself through it? She's obviously found a niche. She works very well within the powers that be in her Senate role. And there are some, senators who go, that's it. I'm fine with that. And I feel like I can actually have great influence in the role I am continuing to play. Or do you think there will be any temptation or any reason to think that she will try to dip her toe back in the pool next time?
It's going to be a difficult couple of years for Senator Klobuchar because she was rising very high in Senate leadership. Now she is in the minority where her voice will not be heard. She's not going to have the committee chairs that she's had before, the power that she had, the influence that she had. And so I do think she's going to be very restless. I would not be surprised if she did it. She is a moderate Democrat in the mold of a Joe Biden Democrat, and that was what she was hoping her appeal would be when she ran for president 4 years ago. And she didn't make it, but Kamala Harris was the liberals' liberal back then. But Klobuchar is more of a moderate, more of somebody who could reach across to other parties to get some support. But here's the thing. The Democrats, and you mentioned Obama, these people have not developed a bench. Who's the bench? Who is out there right now? You've got Josh Shapiro. Klobuchar's out there. Absolutely, I would call her a leader. Newsom
in California.
Yeah, I mean, so there are a number of them, but a lot of these folks are now by the wayside.
Do you think, well, let me just ask you generally speaking, as you're watching it play out and then you're seeing the numbers come in and you're seeing huge numbers in the popular vote, right? Last I saw, he was about 5 million ahead or 4.7 million, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I asked you several times in recent months who's going to win, and you didn't want to go down that road. You said it is as close as people say. I'm not prepared to say it. So I'm assuming you're not surprised or shocked necessarily that Trump won. I was shocked that he won with the numbers that he won. How surprised were you by that part of it?
That was a shocker, that it was a drubbing. He crushed her. That was surprising. I think people thought it might be closer than that, much closer. And going into it, I thought this would be the closest election that I have ever seen. But he delivered and got a mandate. So what is the message that we should take from this? The American voters have absolutely, clearly, definitively, verifiably said, this is who we want. This is the program that we want. We like everything about this. Even if we don't like the man himself and his personality, we like what he stands for, how he fights, and we like the policies that he put out during the campaign. To have the popular vote and what looks to be an overwhelming electoral vote, that gives him a mandate to do something. And if he has the House and the Senate also, they're going to do pretty much whatever they want.
And he has the Senate, right?
Yes.
That's pretty confirmed. The House, is that still in question? They're ahead with the House, but they don't have the number yet that they need to get to, but are they expected to? What are we hearing on that?
I'm just looking at this right now. The latest on the House is that it would give him a major boost. Of course, it says the balance of power in the House is still too early to call. It's going to be several days before they can figure that out. When people are worried about the guardrails are off. Trump unchecked, unbound. It's going to be crazy. There are no guardrails. Well, today Mitch McConnell said that the Senate is his guardrail because it is a Republican Senate, and senators, he believes, are going to keep Donald Trump in check. We'll believe it when we see it.
Well, this is filibuster related too, right?
Well, it is, but also that we don't have to accept everything he says to us.
Right.
But he is going to have extraordinary power that many presidents don't have, and that is appoint judges. There's already talk about some Supreme Court justices
will retiring, and then we'll replace them with the kids,
with a younger one. Yep. Yeah, and finish doing the federal judiciary, just populate it with conservative judges. There are so many things in the power that a president can have. beyond just the things that he says he's going to do on his first day.
There's been all kinds of conversation for months about, once the announcement was made that your guy, RFK Jr., was endorsing Donald J. Trump, that there's your new health czar, that's going to be the guy. And there's been a number of press conferences in which Trump has said, I'm just going to let him loose. I'm just going to let him loose on whatever.
Whatever he wants.
Whatever he wants, basically. Get rid of the fluoride. All vaccines are dangerous. All these kid vaccines are causing autism, even though study after study has proven that is false. So, do we think he means it? I mean, so are you going to be surprised if RFK Jr. is not the new healthcare czar, for example?
Well, I would be surprised if he's appointed to a cabinet post. That would surprise me. I would be surprised. There are mixed signals coming out of the Trump campaign and now the Trump transition team. The head of his transition team says he will not get a cabinet post, a cabinet secretary post. But who knows? I mean, you don't know what to believe. But there are many, many, many other very powerful positions that he could have. He could head the USDA, the Department of Agriculture. He could be the head of CDC. He could be all of it, the FDA. He has made a career and a life out of fighting government agencies and fighting polluters and what is in our drugs and in the water and all of that. A lot of people don't agree with the things he says, but yeah, I would not be surprised if he got some big portfolio that's undefined. And by the way, if I could say, yes. I'm just looking at our Minnesota numbers. He got 24,000 votes in Minnesota yesterday. Not even running. His name did not come off the ballot.
That's true. I noticed.
Dude got 24,000 votes. So, he is very much like Trump, kind of an iconoclastic figure, very famous, against the grain. He's going to be an interesting cat in the next couple of years.
The whole family can't stand him.
That's true. I mean, what's Thanksgiving like?
I have no idea.
At the Kennedy compound?
Got to be rather uncomfortable, I would think. Yeah. In fact, I think I saw an interview from his sister this morning, and he said, "Look, I disagree with everything that he says, and he does. I'm trying to take the high road that they won, but the whole thing seemed very uncomfortable for her as well." This again is one of those unanswerable questions, but I'll ask you because that's what we're in. We're in the post-mortem. We always are at a time like this. So actually there's two. Well, how much time we got? Maybe I'll stick to one. If Biden had, the day that Dean Phillips said, we got a problem, had for whatever reason had an epiphany and said, this guy, obscure guy in Minnesota, you know what? He's right. I looked in the mirror. He's right. I'm out. If he had gotten out that would have been, was that January or February when Dean the first time
he jumped in the race. I think that was in 23.
Yeah.
So that would be early of 20.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's even further back.
Yeah.
So are we in a completely different discussion? I mean, it's the old question of you do it in unorthodox fashion out of necessity, one could say, those who believed in it, but you anointed her. There was no real process. If there had been a process, is there any reason to believe that the Democrats would have indeed given themselves a lot better chance to not be sitting here dealing with these recommendations today?
Yeah, so there was a lot of forehead slapping when he decided he was going to run again, because many Democrats considered it a bait and switch, that he was going to run and eliminate Donald Trump, and we're going to turn the page, and I'll serve one term, and I'm 81 years old, and I'm out. And then he changed his mind. And I think that skewed a lot of the calculations about who was going to run for president, what was the next step for Democrats. Dean Phillips jumps in here, honestly, and was telling the truth like John the Baptist in the desert. And then you got people like Axelrod, James Carville, they're all saying the same thing. And many people reportedly were starting to notice this about Biden. And I want to know, there's going to be a lot written about this. And I really want to know what people knew and when they knew it, including Governor Tim Walz, who after the debate.
Yeah, that's right.
Walked out of the White House after meeting with him and says, "Nah, the guy's right on. He's sharp as a tack. He's in charge." That wasn't true. So where we got to find that out. So Dean Phillips, where does he go? What's the department? What door does he go to what building
get his reputation back?
Yeah. So he gets drummed out of the party. Today on WCCO radio, he was saying that I'm open to running again. He said he's not going to run for governor, but he's open for
Why
another.
not?
He said that it's too soon, and that people need time to separate and process this. He's still a very strong Democrat. But don't count out Dean Phillips someday, somewhere, here.
I wouldn't for sure.
I know.
Thanks for coming in. Channel 4 tonight. You got some Channel 4 stuff tonight?
Yeah, I'm working tomorrow all day, all
awesome.
night.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Pat Kessler reporting.
There it is. That's the guy.
That's how I am.
That's still
this
how you
is
sound.
Reality Check. This is Pat Kessler.
God, your voice has gotten a lot deeper. No question about that. Music is, you're hearing it early because we got Vikings programming leading into Golden Gopher men's basketball tonight on the Fan. We're out even earlier tomorrow.
The Crusaders.
The Oral Roberts Crusaders.
The Crusaders.
So good. So good. And then we'll start the whole thing over again. Dr. Dan's Inbox tomorrow, which could be interesting.
Sean Salisbury
and
Russo
tomorrow.
Radio.
And Russo Radio. So it's going to be quite a power-packed broadcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 right here on the Fan.
What kind of legacy do I leave? I just did the best job I could. It's been a great run. What a great life. What a great state.